Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's Tea Time with Neville Gaunt and my good friend Tony Westwood. And this is the Masters special. The Masters has finished. What a weekend of golf we have just seen. What do you think, Tony?
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it? Really, I mean, I think that certainly the interesting thing for me right at the very beginning was golfers talk a lot about getting into bad habits and doing the same things over and over again, and using phrases like, I always do that on this hole, or this always happens to me, and that kind of thing. And I was certainly buoyed after round one, listening to Justin Rose during his press conference, and he was obviously elated, having played 3 over through 7, and then promptly finishes the next whatever it was. He makes 9 birdies and an eagle, or whatever it was in the last 9 or 10 holes, to lead on 7 under par. And having struggled with a bad back and changed coaches, etc., he was obviously elated to be on the top of the leaderboard. It's not the first time he's led the Masters after the first round. He's been in that position before, which is great. But one thing that really stuck out in his press conference, which I had then hoped for him for the rest of the week, was when I just went back to Sean Foley, his coach he's back with now. Sean said to him that he'd got into interesting habits, and Rose had said interesting habits. Now, he hadn't said bad habits like lots of golfers said. He talks about having interesting habits, and I use that phrase a lot when I'm coaching my clients here. Well, that's interesting. As far as I'm concerned, there's no right and wrong. There's just what's happening right here, right now. If they want to phrase it as right as wrong, then they're going to have a strip torn off them, because that isn't the way we need to focus. But I was certainly buoyed with the fact that he'd said he had interesting habits. Unfortunately, as the rest of the tournament progressed, he seemed to get more focused on what his swing was looking like. As you said, going into that final round, he's practicing, and his coach is showing him a video of what he's just done. Well, if he hasn't got it then, he hasn't got it, and he's struggling.
It's the last day of the Masters. The last thing you want to be doing, I would have thought, is on the practice range looking at a video. You should be concentrating on the mental part of your game and looking forward to that, getting away from the first tee nerves. But as you say, it was interesting habits. We both picked up on this individually. And he also used the word worry in his press conference. And the funny thing is, you and I, we're not really concerned about the negative words. But sometimes, when you say that, you're at the peak of your game, you've just come off and you're leading the Masters, to actually use a word like worry, there's obviously a little grembling in the mind. At this point, you're ahead day one. As you said, it wasn't his first time of leading the Masters, so he was used to it anyway. But there was this little grembling that made him say the word worry. And you just think this is not a word you should be using.
No, I mean, it was bizarre, really. He's got I can't remember, would he have a 4-shot lead going into the second round? He's in his press conference, and one of the media guys said, so, what you're going to be thinking about for tomorrow, etc., etc. For me, the stock answer would be, well, actually, I'm going to go home, I'm going to have some dinner, I'm going to relax and get a good night's sleep. And I'm always reminded of Hal Sutton was, I can't remember whether he was leading or he's 1 behind or 2 behind Tiger at the Players' Championship, or they might have been tied for the lead. I don't know. And I'm no doubt our listeners will correct us in the comments as we go through. But Hal Sutton was asked how he was going to deal with playing golf with Tiger the next day. Bear in mind, they were both either in contention to win the Players. And Hal thought about it for a while, and he says, well, he's kind of like me. He's going to get up in the morning and he's going to put his his right leg in his right trouser leg, and I'm going to put my right leg in my right trouser leg, and I'm going to put my left leg in my left trouser leg, and he's probably going to do something the same. Then we're going to have breakfast, we're going to get to the golf course, and we're going to play golf. And that was it. And all Rose needed to say was, I'm going to go home, have dinner, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to go through my routine, I'm going to go and practice again and play. That's it. There was nothing else to be said. But he did say, well, I worry about tomorrow when I get there. And I'm like, why introduce that word? That's interesting. The start of his second round, he went back to 4 under very, very quickly. And it wasn't until the latter part of that round, as he'd recovered from the first day, that he got himself back up to 7 under par. But by then his lead was cut down to 1 shot, and players were in the hunt. So he never made those steps forward. But you just wonder, that one word, what impact it had on his unconscious mind in getting in that preparation for going into that second round. We'll never know. If he'd have said, I'm just going to go and have dinner, get up and go and play, who knows what would have happened the next day, because that isn't what he did. But yeah, you and I talk a lot about wherever we are, we're always there and we're always listening. So please be mindful of what you say, because things happen.
And remember, we're talking about a person at the top of their game. We're not talking about the average golfer here. We're talking about a person that literally is leading the Masters, as he's done in the past. So we're using these. We talk about, in sports, we talk about the marginal differences, the marginal gains. And one of those marginal gains is self-talk. And it is that self-talk. And you've only got to think about what was now going through the self-talk of all those players that missed the cut. So now we're down to the bottom of Friday, and some big names missed the cut. McIlroy, for one. The expectation of Lee Westwood, 2 British players, but a very big American player missed the cut.
Yeah, champion.
The champion missed the cut. This is how dangerous, I suppose, this course is for even champions.
Oh, absolutely. And I look back and you think of the times, Lee knows his backstory. Lee Westwood, obviously, that is. I'm no relation, by the way. I'm far better looking, but I am no relation.
No comment.
So, Lee knows the backstory. He's the oldest player now, currently playing, who's not won a major. If he'd have won the Masters, he'd have beaten Nicklaus's record. Nicklaus won it when he was 46 and 3 months, I think, something like that. Lee's 48 now, so he would have been the oldest player. We commented at the golf club over the weekend that he's had his son Sam on his bag the last 2 weeks. So his fiance was on the bag when he finished runner-up twice in the space of 2 weeks or so. He's got Sam on the bag, and he just hasn't performed as well. Is it to having somebody strange there, that familiarity of being able to do the same thing, have the same jokes? The dynamic is different when somebody else is there on the golf bag. Unfortunately, Rory's highlight of the 4th day, or the 2 days he was there, was hitting his own dad on the leg during his first round.
That was picked out on most commentaries.
Yeah,
which,
absolutely.
That's not a shot you really want to be remembered for.
No.
You would have thought.
Well,
but
sure
but again, it's the highs and lows of such high powered players. So again, we need to reinforce here, this is not just a Sunday stroll for most average golfers. These are people at the top of their game, and they still miss the cut.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Rory, didn't we? And we talked about him. He's changed coaches, and we don't think he needs a coach. He needs somebody to tell him everything's all right. Learn to behave and manage your emotions better on the golf course. We've touched on this in the previous It's Tea Times when we've talked about Rory. You know, his heart is on his sleeve far, far too much. You know, he misses a putt on it. You can see the pain in his face.
Mm.
Instead of the reaction being, "Oh, that was close," it's
yeah, and yet, other people, you know, would dream of doing that shot. And I'm not talking about the likes of you and me. Not that I would countenance myself in your league at all, but top players would dream of doing those shots. But now we're talking literally, so big names missed the cut. Phil Mickelson, to my surprise, still got through because I think halfway through Friday, he's sitting at 4 over. The cut is projected at 2 over. And he's just hit another shot into the trees. And I can't imagine what was going through his mind, but he beat the cut. So, you know, he was there right until the bitter end. Almost like one of the left-handers that does those amazing flip shots. I mean,
yeah,
Mr. Up and Down, as I call him. Absolutely amazing. See some amazing shots from him. But now we're into Saturday. And of course, they call it Movers Day, I suppose, for everyone around the world. And out of nowhere, suddenly we see some names that aren't really household names start to come to the fore.
Yeah, it was incredible, wasn't it? You know, the young Will Zalatoris was just amazing. You know, he the only player to finish all 4 rounds under par, all 4 numbers in the red, which was just incredible. 2 years ago, he's playing on mini tours, qualifying on a Monday. So he's not on the tour. He's having to play qualifying rounds on the Monday to get into the event for the Thursday. You know, so what an event it must be for him. And having watched his press conference this morning, he used his knowledge of watching the Masters for years and years, dreaming like lots of young kids dreamt. I've got to admit, I was one of those young kids, dreamt of being at Augusta, playing in that event. We know where the pins are going to be. We know how the putts are going to break. And yet it seems like all these great players forget that. Whether they stop studying it or not, I don't know. But yeah, John Rahm was one. I watched him miss one putt, and he turned to his caddy, and his face was a picture. There was rage, there was anger in his emotion, and he's like, how could that miss? And I'm like, well, you hit it at the wrong pace and on the wrong line. So
Exactly.
you know, the golf course isn't going to do you any favors. The hole's not going to move to where your ball is. You've got to read the green better and hit the ball at the right pace, and then they will go in. But Will Zalatoris just gave the golf course the respect it required. You know, he patiently went about his business. Interesting that the key thing for him as to why he finished second was he played the 13th hole, a par 5, in a main corner in level par. Now, for players this length, that's a birdie hole all day long. So he's finished 1 off the lead and he's level par for one of the main moving holes. So he knows he could have won this Masters. And it all comes down to, as he said it, that 13th hole. Yes, superb, absolutely superb to finish second. His Masters invite is in the post for next year, which is superb. And who knows what he will go on and do. You know, he hits the ball a mile. He's fit. He's athletic, and he's smart. He seems switched on. He understands what the game means. He respects the golf course and he respects the other players around him. So yeah, I think he's definitely a name to watch. Definitely a name to watch.
Definitely a name to watch. And as you said, you know, this is his first Masters. He's never played this course before. I think Butch Harmon said around the commentary, he was asked a question, I think it was on the 15th, and Butch said, well, the only thing that's going to beat him is lack of experience. And he said he's never played this course before. He doesn't know where the ball's going to land. And of course, even an experienced coach like Butch Harmon that commentates at the Masters for goodness knows how long. I mean, certainly
Mm.
ever since I can remember watching the Masters, he hasn't put one and one together and said, actually, this guy's just watched recordings. He's
Yeah.
watched it time and time again.
Mm.
We can all experience things and imagine ourselves in those positions. Like, for instance, the 12th hole, you know, we all know where that pin's going to be on a Sunday, and we all know where the shot is. And
Yep.
if every commentator says, aim for the middle of the green,
Yeah.
you know, and even Butch Harmon says, oh, you didn't want to do that one. You're going to have to take the pain, you know, take your medicine and move on.
Mm.
The number of times he said that throughout the 4 days, take your medicine and move on. This is an unforgiving golf course.
Mm.
You know, you miss the fairway, you miss position A, and the next shot is going to be much harder.
Yeah.
But talking about shots, I mean, Matsuyama came from nowhere, basically. We're going to congratulate him now. You know, number one Japanese player. It's great to see a new name on the trophy. Not only that, it's a new country on the trophy.
Yeah.
So that's something that this tournament has thrown up. That's the amazing thing for me. And such a humble player. We'll get to him in a minute, but the even in and he was offline many times yesterday. He was in the trees and in those pine cones. And I know you've played off pine cones many times, and so have I. These are not easy shots by any
No.
stretch of the imagination. And if you saw some of them, you know, you see this almost like goalposts, and a bit like taking a penalty, isn't it?
Yeah.
The goalposts start really wide. Oh, it's huge.
Mm.
I'm bound to get it in. There's only a goalkeeper to beat, and I can hit that hard. And as you get closer to that ball, all of a sudden, the post gets smaller and smaller, and the goalie gets bigger and bigger. And that's what happens in golf as well. So he hit some amazing shots, you know, through those trees, and had a bit of fortune on the way, which is fair to say. But thinking about Sunday now, we're now into literally the last throws of the coin. Matsuyama literally after 5 holes hadn't moved. He had moved, but it was up and down,
Mm-hmm.
or rather down and up, and it looked like the field wasn't going to make any impact.
Mm.
His playing partner Schauffele was doing some amazing golf from the bizarre area with triple bogey on one hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet recovering it with, you know, birdies and an eagle, and you just think, actually, this guy, if he just had some consistency. And I think it's the Sunday where we saw consistency. We saw the young player being consistent, despite the fact he'd never been on the golf course in his
Mm.
life. The first time was on Monday morning. And we
Yeah.
saw consistency from Matsuyama. And I think this was what we would expect from such a tough golf course. It's being consistent,
Yeah.
respecting the golf course.
Well, I think that's the big thing, isn't it? You know, you can't go out and beat the golf course. The golf course is there. You're being challenged to show up and do your best on every single shot. And that's all you can do. You stand up on the first tee and you do your best you can on that shot. Once you've hit that shot, regardless of what happens, you let go and then go and hit the next shot. You know, you don't think about your next shot until you get to your next shot, because you don't know where it is. You quite rightly said, you know, if you go in the trees, they don't know where it is lying in the trees. They could beat themselves up for that 250, 230, whatever it is, 300-yard walk up the first fairway and find they've got a perfect lie and a massive gap, and they've got a perfect angle into the green. So they're giving themselves pain for the previous 5 minutes. And all of a sudden they get there, they go, well, this is all right. And they've got to regroup again. Likewise, they could blitz it straight down the middle of the fairway thinking, oh, this is great. And they're walking down with the chest out, tall, walking tall, yeah, getting the adulation from the crowd. They get down there and it's sitting in a divot. And all of a sudden they've got something else to deal with. And over the course of the 4 days, whether it's the cultural element of the Japanese culture, we understand how their business culture works. You probably certainly more than I do in terms of that respect. So but we know we've talked about it, you know, the notion of respect and honor. Nobody's above anybody else, you know, we help each other. So it's respecting people, respecting places. And he seemed to carry that with him for all 4 days. He was, in his interviews, he was very humbled and very honest. You know, he was asked, being the first Japanese golfer to win a major, does this now make you the best Japanese golfer ever? And his response was, and you'll have to forgive my Japanese because I can't speak it, so it'll have to be in English. His response was, well, no, because there's lots of great Japanese golfers. But if being the first one to win a major creates that accolade, then that's absolutely fine. You know, so he wasn't going to blow his own trumpet and say, yes, that's it. It's a case of, okay, you know, it's great. I've done it. I've achieved it. It's wonderful. And he just seemed to manage it. Even on 15, you know, they asked him about why he went into the water on 15. He says, well, I had 200, he said he had 227 yards or something to go. And he just hit the 4-iron well. And we all know what adrenaline does, you know. We know what big tackles can be like in the game of rugby. All of a sudden, that adrenaline's there, and this little bloke's knocking the big bloke 10 yards further back, and he's just hit the golf shot of his life, flown it about no more than maybe 7 or 8 yards further than he wanted to. That's all. That's how small the margins are. But he got out of there and he made his 6. You know, he didn't go to necessarily get it onto the green. He left it short, knowing that 2 putts would give him his 6, and he'd only dropped 1 shot. Schauffele, on the other hand, makes a birdie, almost makes eagle out of the bunker, and now the lead is down to 2 shots. And then we get to the 16th. Wow, that was just incredible. Incredible. You know, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, where Schauffele was in the hunt with Woods. Schauffele hit a good shot and Woods knocked it almost in the hole. And Schauffele finishes second. This time he's in the driver's seat. You know, he knows what he needs to do. He knows, we talked about history of the game. He knows there's a bank on the right-hand side. There is no need at all to go for that flag. And he says in his interviews, I hit a great shot right down the flag, just like I wanted to do it. And he's 2 feet away from probably almost making a hole in one. But he makes a 6. And that's it. There you go, Hideki. It's all yours. All you got to do is play it up the right, make a 2-putt, and you've got the green jacket. You know, Will Zalatoris had a sniff, you know, but Hideki, after he hit his tee shot the last, the green jacket, they just needed to get the right size and he was sorted. He even had the right colour shirt to go with the green jacket. A yellow, fantastic.
I thought that was another one of Butch Harmon's classics. He said it's amazing about, you know, all the players on a Sunday make sure they have a shirt that doesn't clash with the green jacket.
Green jacket, yeah, absolutely.
But well, I think that just one thing that you can wrap up. What was your highlight of the 4-day spectacle?
Oh, dear me, it's an incredible spectacle. I don't think you can put your finger on one thing. It never ceases to amaze me how this golf course tests the best players in the world. And other than former champions, these are the top 50 golfers and the top amateur golfers on the planet. And it puts them and tests their mettle year in, year out. After all the experience they've had of playing the golf course, nobody really goes and tears it apart, because they find a way of making sure it's just difficult enough. You know, they know what it's going to be like, and yet something happens. Something happens when you walk on that hallowed turf, and you know that the guy who's going to be left standing at the end of the weekend is one who can manage his emotions the best, who can manage and know they're going to hit shots offline, who can manage when things happen. And more than any, certainly probably any golf course and any tournament, it really does test their mindset, their attitude and behavior to what is going to happen. And for me, that's what is incredible about it. And it's held me since I was a little kid watching it for the first time in the 70s, when this amazing blaze of green colour hit the TV screens when it was grey in April in the northwest of England. And, you know, and it didn't disappoint again. So I think that is it for me, really. It's going to test your mindset. You are one of the best golfers in the world. Yet this golf course is really going to put you to the test.
Yeah, I think that's a good overall impact. We got to remember that this is the only golf course in the world that everyone goes back to, well, by invite, to the same place without COVID at the same time every year.
Absolutely.
You know, the Opens are played on various courses around the US. The British Open is played around various courses, typically links courses around the UK, but it's never every single year at the same place, same time, same channel. And interesting enough, it's the same course. So looking at the banner behind, the missing link to your success is definitely mindset. But the highlight for me, and it is a mindset thing, and I'm going to say to Butch Harmon, because I just love this phrase: take your medicine and move on. Which is such a beautiful phrase when you think about it. You and I always say about play the shot in front of you. If it's been a bad shot, take your medicine and move on. Just forget it.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. Even with the top players around the world, it is easier said than done. But if you can master it, my goodness, you will enjoy your golf a lot more.
Absolutely, yeah. And at the end of the day, it's only creating that as a habit. You know, it's creating that, is setting your stall out to be able to do that and realize that it is simple, but it's not easy. That's the key thing. It is simple, but it's not easy. But you have to keep practicing and practicing over and over again to be able to do it. And Matsuyama did.
So congratulations to Matsuyama. Congratulations, Japan. New name on the tournament, which is absolutely fantastic. Tony, it's been a pleasure having a chat over our little review of the Masters. We hope you've enjoyed it. Interesting thoughts.
Very interesting.
We'll see you next time.
Make interesting your word of the year.
There you go. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.